Hey everybody, it's Jahmade back again with Opus Gaming, and I'm here today to bring you guys a Terrasaur deck profile for the Battle Spirit Saga card game. This is really an exciting video for me to make just because we've had a lot of people kind of reaching out to us, asking us about the card game, asking us what's a good deck to get into the game, and kind of learn the rules, learn the mechanics, and this is a deck that I've sent out to numerous amounts of my friends to just kind of like get into the game, kind of feel out the game, and there's lots of little text that you can kind of make as you're kind of buying packs, buying starter decks and stuff like that. So I think it does make for a really strong deck, but we'll dive into its strengths, its weaknesses when we get into the deck profile. Before we do get into the deck profile though, you guys already know we're on our way to our first 1,000 subscribers, and when we do get to 1,000 subscribers, we're gonna be doing a really big channel giveaway. I'll have the giveaway linked in the description here, but if you guys aren't subbed and you guys have been seeing my content, like my content, drop a sub down below, and if you're just here to support, leave a like, leave a comment. All that stuff helps us get on the algorithm. But let's get into the deck profile now. Alright, let's get into the deck profile portion of the video, and we're going to be kicking this off with the non-Terrasaur parts of the deck. We're going to kick it off with Rain Needle. Rain Needle is a Star Dragon that's going to be a 1 cost 1 reduction spirit. This card comes down, the biggest thing with the free-to-play cards is they come down and they give you a cost reduction when you didn't have it before. So if you need to play something like a Nexus and you don't want to pay that extra core, instead of paying the core, you put the core onto the Rain Needle, play the Rain Needle, and now you have 2 reductions to possibly play a Nexus card for 2 in that specific situation, but there are a lot of different situations where this applies. Rain Needle is really nice being a free-to-play card as well because it provides early aggression, mid-game aggression, but really in the very late game when your opponent and you are kind of on very low amounts of spirits, and it's going to be coming down to who has enough attackers, enough blockers, and stuff like that. Having the Rain Needle is actually super intense and really, really nice because you can top deck it. If you already have a spirit on the board, it's just going to increase the amount of attacks that you have by 1. And if you know that you can dodge your opponent's volcanic breaks or burning forces, having the Rain Needle in hand is going to be super crucial. So it kind of circles back to be something that's really nice to touch on in the late game. But for all of the non-Terrasaur cards, they're all free-to-play cards. So we're going to go through them one by one, or they have at least cost reductions equal to their main play cost. Dragaron Trooper is just a decent attacker with 2 cores on it, so it's a minimal investment. It swings at 5k. It's not like unblockable, but it does dodge Burning Force super well. So that's the main reason that's in there, as well as the same reasons of it being another symbol that you can put on board for no real investment right away. Now, Dragaron Trooper, or Dragaron Guard, sorry, is in here for a couple reasons. It is a 3 cost, 3 reduction card, so it can come down for free. But the number one thing that it'll do is help you deal with purple. This can pop your opponent's big purple nexuses, or it forces them to take a damage on turns where they really didn't want to, or they have to play like some of their magic cards, so they have to spend cores to remove this guy if it comes down for free. His ability is when he destroys one of your opponent's cards by BP, or by BP comparison, you can pop a Nexus on board. This deck struggles really hard with purple, and one of the things that purple really needs to get its foot in the door are its Nexus cards. So if you're able to give them 1 card from their, not Cathedral, that's the yellow one, but from their Netherworld Depths, and then pop it right after because they're just in a position where they can't take damage, that's really, really good trade. And this card actually comes up, especially as a 1-of every once in a while, so I actually really like it. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Terrasaur cards, and we're going to be getting into kind of the same order where it's going to be the 1-drops. This is another 1-drop vanilla. It mirrors your Rain Needle, but this one is in archetype, so it's going to be the Over-Raptidon. It's going to be a Terrasaur. 3 cores on it. It can dodge your opponent's burning forces, so these are actually really nice, both for the reason that we were talking about earlier, how it kind of circles back and proves to be a good attacker, but as well as it's just kind of a good way to dump cores onto your cards. So the next free-to-play card we have is the 3 cost 3 reduction Bearded Eagle. This card's stats are actually ridiculous. It just needs 2 cores to be at 5k, which, like with the Dragaron Trooper, I believe, its ability that helps you dodge your opponent's burning forces, so you can push damage really easy, and it's a low core investment. But at 4 cores, it sits at 7k, and now it's actually a threat. You can leave it standing, attack with it last, and just kind of make sure that your opponent can't attack back into you with cards that are 5 or 6. And that kind of just comes up really nicely because red has a really good way of putting aggression out at any point that it wants to, but that doesn't have to be your whole strategy. You can actually double back and fall into more of a mid-range strategy where you tempo out some of your opponent's attacks and some of their cards until they're in a position where they don't have enough resources to deal with you. And Bearded Eagle is just one of the cards that really, really help that strategy. Next up, we have Dilophosa. This card is actually definitely the MVP for my testing. It's just been really nice. When it does have the 2 cost reduction and it just comes out for 1 cost and you just put 3 cores on it and it's an AK, it outstats your Bearded Eagle on the offense. And then the only thing that's bad about it is that it can't defend. But that only comes up when you're playing against other aggro matchups. Usually you're the aggressor and you're the person pushing the pace of the game. So playing the Delafosa is actually really, really nice. We'll actually just drop these guys up here. Next up, we have, this card is probably one of my least favorite, Dynamite Tyrannoid. This card is like decent, but it's not fantastic. It comes down, if it has one other spirit on the board, it goes up to its level 3 cost. And that's nice in some matchups. Sometimes it hurts in the purple matchup, which is in my opinion, is one of your worst matchups. They can just core reduce this card out, so you have to put cores on it anyway, and then its core cost to hit certain DP thresholds is actually just not that great. Putting 3 cores on it to hit 5 is pretty normal, but putting 6 cores on it to hit 6k is a little bit rough. So he comes up every once in a while, but he's not great. You have to do some like kind of finessing, and if your opponent knows what you're trying to do, if you're attacking with certain spirits and if you're on a 3 board and you're trying to bait out a block so that your spirit dies and you can boost this back up to 6k, lots of times your opponent will just see that coming. So this card is proven to be like a decent card, but not super fantastic. Getting into the cards now that I do enjoy just a lot is Nebula Dragon Andromeda. This card's super cool because it can be Confront, but on top of that, it helps you deal with your opponent's nexuses. On the turn that they drop Netherworld Depths, if you drop this in return, it's just really nice because yes, you use one of your turns to kind of get over their nexus, but you did put a body on the board that is going to be a big terror for your opponent to deal with for the rest of the game. And this card it really doesn't feel too terrible. Popping a 3k is kind of whatever because that's really easy to dodge. It's really here for Nexus management. And as we're moving into kind of, not a new meta, but now that we're getting tournament pack promos, yellow's getting a little bit stronger. All the colors are getting a little bit stronger, honestly, except for purple, really. You're going to see this card kind of come in and be more useful against those random decks like purple, those random Nexuses that you don't maybe read in the set, but that your opponent kind of plays as a linchpin of their strategy. Next up, we're playing Jurassic King Giganorex. I think I've opened 6 boxes, and I've only opened 3 of these. I haven't picked up any extras from my friends or anything as of yet. Playing this as the 3 of is nice, but it's definitely a 4 of, because you just drop this in so many game states. Is it early game? You drop this. Is it late game? You drop this mid game. Obviously, you're going to drop this too. It's super nice, and it combos pretty well with some of the cards that we tech in. It kind of just adds itself to the playstyle that red has, where it's like red can go to these really big numbers super comfortably, and if you get kind of I guess it is floodgated. If you get floodgated out of the turn and you can't attack for the rest of the turn, you can still sit on this as a really decent sized blocker, and he still does work. So I really like Jurassic King Giganorex. Definitely suggest playing it as a 4 of. Just in this list, it's at a 3 of because that's what I have. If I was going to swap it out for a card, it would probably be something like that Dynamite that we were talking about just a second ago. Moving on to the Nexuses, we have Scorched Battlefield. This card is fantastic. It's definitely what the deck is built around, right? You combo the plus 1k for free, plus the super easy access to the draw card is just really nice. You sit cores on this, and then you remove them defensively when you need to for things like Ice Shield or whatever else you might be playing, maybe Burning Force or Volcanic Break. And it just combos really nicely, and it sits really well. So this is definitely the #1 Nexus that you want to see. And then this Nexus is just good, which is Volcanic Canyon. Having the cycle is pretty decent. Sometimes it can get to be too much, where you're just like, all right, I have a lot of good cards in my hand and I'm good with this. I don't need to be trying to discard cards every single time. So it kind of comes up every once in a while. It's a decent card, but you just don't need it all the time. Next up, let's talk about removal. Volcanic Break is a really strong card. Removing the Soul Core to hit a 6k is actually crazy because in this deck, it's all about tempo. You want to remove your opponent's cards. If they want to get a cheeky attack in when they're turning sideways, you want to use this to pop your opponent's currently standing card and let them get the damage and give you an extra core, so you have fewer defenders to think about. And this deck just has the ability to kind of snatch game from your opponent at any point. So they really have to think about that a lot of times. And using Volcanic Break on the flash is crazy nice. So having this at a 3 of is super, super smart. I think that playing it at 4 of would be too much because we have 4 Burning Force. Playing 4 Burning Force is crazy. 4 Burning Force is, I think that it's a staple for red. If you're playing 3 of it, I could totally get that, but playing 4 of it's nice. Hitting Nexuses consistently is nice, obviously, because you have a rough purple matchup, but it's a dodgeable card. That's the one thing I do want to touch on, is that if your opponent is really playing around the Burning Force, there are situations where you will get no value out of this, but I think that in the first set for the game, lots of decks are kind of contingent on running their Nexuses, and they have to. So playing the Burning Forest just kind of seems like something that you have to. So just something to think about. It's just not always about removing your opponent's 2-for-1 spirits. So getting into some of our burst cards, we have 4-star Blessed Draw. It's a red deck, so you have to play 4-star Blessed Draw. It's just a fantastic card. It helps you so much in the purple mirror, or in the, not the purple mirror, but the purple matchup. And it's one of the things that helps you get the foot in the door. I do think that if you see this early enough and you can resolve enough of these, that your opponent has too hard of a time keeping up with how much value that you get onto the board. But in those, there's a ton of games where you won't see this against purple specifically, but there's a lot of other matchups that you can use it to, that that not having this is super detrimental, and I think that's what makes it one of the cards that you just want to see consistently. That's why we're playing it at 4. So helps against purple. It does help against a lot of other things, but against purple, not seeing this is actually detrimental. So I do mulligan for that against the purple matchup. And getting into our white cards, we have 4 Absolute Ice Shield. I think this is a staple. There's not too much to say about it. Ends your opponent's turn. This is like a mid-rangey deck. So if you're sitting on all attackers and you turn everything sideways, and you can just know that you can sit on an Absolute Ice Shield, the amount of turns that you can do that in a row can just be too much pressure for your opponent to deal with unless they have 4 Ice Shields themselves. And that kind of is just what the card represents in the deck. It's just crazy defense. And then we teched in 2 Suppression as well. The 2 Suppression is for when your opponent is dropping their bigger cards or kind of getting cheeky with some of their attacks. Maybe they're attacking to try to force you into a position where you have to block. This is where your cards being so highly statted on their base is huge, because you're putting cores onto your Scorched Battlefield. If you have 2 Scorched Battlefields out with 4 cores on them, now you're just paying this for free. And if you have a sideways Gigano Rex with max scores on it, now their 12k attacker is swinging into a 13k blocker, and now they're having to burn extra cards to try to buff their DP. You can't do that as well, but trying to buff extra cards other than playing a second suppression to buff their DP and deal with your redirect attack. And that's just something that's not ideal for them. So playing the suppression is actually super nice. It is just like kind of a part of your line, right? You're going up the line and making all these really big cards, and if you see 1 or 2 suppressions, you can lock your opponent out of their offensive turn or out of their opportunity to attack if they ice shielded you early and take one of your blockers. So that's something that's super, super sweet. I really love suppression. I really like this deck list. Like I said in the beginning, this is something that I've been kind of sending out to all my friends, as people have been asking me, like, what's a good deck to get into the meta and pilot? This is a fantastic deck to learn the meta in, and this is something I've been playing a ton. If like my friends want to play purple and stuff like that, I'll pilot this and then just kind of like go through the motions of showing them like the bigger statted cards. And I think that this deck has lots to show for what the game can do from the low end to the top end. So this deck has been fantastic for me. But if you guys have any questions about the deck profile or anything, drop comments down below. You guys already know. But this is gonna be Jahmade with Opus Gaming, and I'm out. Take care.